Hello everyone, hope you're having a great day. My name's Vince and thanks for joining me for another episode of Secrets of the Trails. Today I'm in Whitsett, Pennsylvania, ready to check out the Great Allegheny Passage segment from Whitsett to West Newton. So here at Whitsett, we're sitting at gap mile 104.1. The Whitsett Trailhead shares its space with the Weiss Memorial Park. It's a nice location for the locals and has a basketball court, small playground, and a baseball field. And here at Trailside, there are 2 covered pavilions, a couple of porta potties, and a bicycle repair station, as well as some potable water. There's also a good amount of parking along either side of First Street. This side has space for about 13 vehicles and is paved but not lined or really marked for handicapped accessibility. On the other side of the street, there is a gravel area that can hold, I'd estimate, maybe about 15 vehicles. However, at the time this video is being made, there is some utility work going on, so you may not be able to park on that side of the street. If you've followed along with these videos so far, you'll know that I usually give a brief history of the starting Great Allegheny Passage trailhead town before setting off, and we're going to continue that tradition in this video. But our ride today, for purposes of convenience, is going to pass 2 trail access points and finish up in West Newton. I'm doing this today primarily because of the short point-to-point distances between each trail access point along the way. So in order to make it a good 10+ mile point-to-point ride today, we're starting here in Whitsett and we'll finish off in West Newton. So with that in mind, before we hit the trail, let's take a quick look at the history of this trailhead town, Whitsett. Nestled along the banks of the Allegheny River in Fayette County, the village of Whitsett is one of the last surviving examples of an early 20th century coal patch town. Established in the late 1800s by Ralph and Rachel Whitsett, giving the town its name, Whitsett developed around the booming coal and coke industries that once fueled Pittsburgh steel mills. The coal mines, including Banding No. 1 and the nearby Dar Mine, as well as the many coke ovens that dotted the hills around the town, were essential to the town's existence, providing jobs and a way of life for generations of immigrant laborers. At its height, Whitsett housed hundreds of workers in company-built homes, with the Pittsburgh and Lake Erie Railroad cutting through its center. The mines never ceased, and the coke ovens, now abandoned and overgrown, once glowed red-hot, converting coal into coke, an essential fuel for steel production. Today, Whitsett is a quiet community with few residents remaining, but the layout of the town, many of its original home plots, and the coke ovens themselves are largely intact, making it a rare and valuable time capsule of Pennsylvania's industrial past. Whitsett has even been added to the National Register of Historic Places. The Whitsett Historical Society keeps the town's history alive through its Facebook page. For travelers on the Great Allegheny Passage, Whitsett offers more than a scenic riverside view. It's a welcoming rest spot along their trail's journey. Whitsett stands as a reminder of the industry that built a region and the communities that gave it life. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed a look at the history of Whitsett. Now let's mount up and check out the Great Allegheny Passage segment from Whitsett to West Newton. So as we ride past the Whitsett Trailhead, you can see some of the old company town style homes here along the way. On this segment of the Great Allegheny Passage, as usual, the treadway is crushed limestone and is on average about 10 feet wide. There are a couple of sections on this segment that are a little bit narrower, and we'll see those as we go along. P&L-E-R-R, you'll start seeing those from Connellsville all the way up. The Western Maryland Railway had this right-of-way from Cumberland all the way up to Connellsville, and then Pittsburgh and Lake Erie Railway had it pretty much all the way up to McKeesport. On the left here, gaptrail.org makes a special note of Sager mosaics, so check that out on the website. We're going to be crossing River Road here, so we're going to stop, have limited sight distance over there, so we want to listen and look, obviously. And this is actually the only significant road crossing. There is another one up at Van Meter, but it's a very small community and that's a one-way in and out. So the only people that are going to be using that road crossing that we'll see above are going to be the people that are local to Van Meter. We're going to be passing by the trail barriers here. Most of the trail barriers in this segment, until we get up to Allegheny County, are the 3 vertical stakes, usually a plastic or metal one in the middle, and the 2 wooden ones on the side. One of the nice things about this segment is you get a lot of good views of the Youghiogheny River and the nice calm Youghiogheny River. From here to McKeesport, where the Youghiogheny flows into the Monongahela, it's actually pretty calm. You'll see a lot of small bridges along this section all the way up from before here. The last episode we saw a few. This marker here indicates that this is the location of the sky ferry that miners would use to access the mine if they lived across the river. We're going to see a few more of those, not only in this segment, but in the next segment from West Newton to Boston. Now we're coming up to the Banning Railroad Trestle at 160 feet high and just short of 1,600 feet long. This is what's called a K-type truss bridge. It was built by the Pittsburgh and West Virginia Railroad around 1931. If you recall, we saw the other end of this line of the old P&WV Railroad Bridge at Connellsville, right at York River Park. I understand that this part of the line is still active. Shortly after passing the Banning Bridge, we're coming up to the area of Old Banning No. 1 mine. But just before we get to the remnants of that mine, however, here's a very interesting art feature, which serves as a memorial to one of the worst mine disasters in U.S. history. Using part of an old retaining wall, this is the Dar Mine Disaster Project. It was installed by local artist Rachel Sager, who we mentioned earlier. Each of these plaques is numbered and represents each of the 239 men who were lost on December 19, 1907 during the Dar mine explosion that occurred a couple of miles just west of where we are in the old Dar mine. We're actually going to go very close to the old mine entrance in a bit. Just past the memorial wall are the remains of Banning No. 1. They have an interpretive sign here about the mine. One of the silos and part of the coal cleaning plant are all that remain here of the old Banning No. 1. We've hit mile 106. And coming up here soon, another commemoration of the Dar mine disaster. Here's another cable car site. This one actually seems to have been used for the gopao or the pilings here that you see just beyond the trail, probably bringing everything over and just sticking it right there. So we're coming close to the coal patch town of Van Meter, but before we get there, here's the other memorial that I mentioned to the Dar mine disaster. This one is erected by the Bell Vernon Rotary Club. This memorial is very close to the original entrance of the mine, which is up in that direction. And a couple of trail barriers here tells us that we are about mile 107, or pretty close there, and we are coming into the small unincorporated community known as Van Meter, so named because John Van Meter once operated a ferry service around here in the 1790s. Another commemorative plaque for Van Meter we're going to put up here. Right along the trail here is what's listed as the South Yard Depot Bed and Breakfast. The property used to be the P&Le's maintenance Jacobs Creeper Van Meter station. Obviously, though, now it's a private residence, but they do operate a B&B right in that building right there. And they also have drinks and snacks available, and I've seen a lot of hikers and cyclists using this as a nice little rest stop along their way. And here's where the trail narrows a little bit. It's going actually to about 6 to 7 feet wide through the community of Van Meter. As you can imagine, the trains rolling through these people's backyards back in the day. Just in this area, you can see an old gob pile on the right-hand side here with a retaining wall. This is the area of the old Banning No. 3 mine. Notice that there are a number of mines that were named Banning on this side of the river, even though the village of Banning was on the opposite side of the river, not too far away from Jacobs Creek. These were all named for Colonel A.R. Banning, who was a local coal and coke operator. And coming up here, we might just be able to see a little bit of it through the trees That's what's known as the McKibben's Archipelago. So if you look at this area on Google Maps, you can actually see there's islands inside the Youghiogheny River. And we've seen that before in other areas, but this is pretty cool because it's actually named as such on a map, even though I don't think there's anything there, but there's a name attached to it, the McKibben's Archipelago. We're hitting mile 108, and we're going to be going under the bridge for, I believe it's Smithton Road. It's Route 981, Pennsylvania Route 981. And we're coming into the Smithton Trailhead. So the Smithton Trailhead actually is a recognized trailhead on the Great Allegheny Passage website. And you can see that's all gravel, unlined. There are no curbstones, but there are these wooden barriers here across. The website actually says it holds about 20 vehicles. I guarantee it can hold a heck of a lot more than that. And this is also the staging area for people who want to use Smithton Beach for watercraft features, as those folks are obviously in the process of doing. So moving on from the Smithton Trailhead, we'll be encountering a slight upslope as we continue the trail another couple of miles to Cedar Creek Park. You'll see some signs saying Gap Trail construction ahead. It's actually not the trail itself, but the bridge up there that we'll see here in a minute. It's the sometimes called the Smithton Bridge, but also officially known as the Matthew Smelser Memorial Bridge. It actually carries Interstate 70 across it. And that's what's actually under construction. At the time of the video here, they've actually just been doing some repainting and refurbishing of the bridge itself. So obviously they're not done yet, in the middle of 2024 here, so just be careful. The equipment here, if you come during a weekday, they are going to be working. This is a weekend, so obviously we've got the trail to ourselves without having to worry about running into any people flagging us down. But I have been here in the past on a weekday when they actually had to stop trail users for a little bit to allow for them to move equipment. On the left side of us here, we have some interesting geologic formations that I don't know what they're called. Any geologists, please let me know. Right along Sawmill Run here, there's another interpretive plaque here. This is about the Port Royal Mine Number 2 disaster. It's not underestimating to say that this segment has a lot of coal mining history to it. In between the Port Royal marker and the trail's entrance to Cedar Creek Park, you can see this area on the left-hand side that's covered by moss. It's what's called a tufa. It's essentially like a stalactite that you'd see in a cave, but it's on the outer surface of the rocks. This formation, according to geologists, is susceptible to damage, and it's very nice to look at, but we should just look, but don't touch. So after passing mile 110, we're actually coming up into Cedar Creek Park. It's managed by the Westmoreland County Department of Parks and Recreation. This is a very large park, and we're going to show you just some scenes of the trail side area. It is a very large and sprawling park, goes all the way up the hill there. A lot of pavilions and a lot of areas that people use. It's a very, very busy park, especially during certain times of the season. There are a lot of rest facilities here, a lot of parking, too much to actually count. Bike parking that we just went past, bike parking down there, bike parking up here, all of it lined, a lot of it marked off for handicapped access, so a lot of accessibility here at Cedar Creek Park. Now this segment of the trail is highly used by walkers and joggers, so throughout Cedar Creek Park, just be cautious about other people using the trail as well. And might be able to hear up on the hill above us. You can't see them, but it sounds like it's a radio-controlled aircraft flying around up there. They actually have an RC aircraft field up there. And just on the left here, bicycle repair station and another set of restrooms. There's actually a boat launch down that way. I mean, all in all, Cedar Creek Park is a really fantastic staging area, and I've used it a lot of times myself. I personally think that with all the amenities here at Cedar Creek Park, it probably should be recognized by the Great Allegheny Passage as its own trailhead. But since Cedar Creek Park isn't technically a town, I guess we'll just be content with calling it trail access. And as we're exiting Cedar Creek Park, this is Cedar Creek Gorge. There are a lot of hiking trails that go up that way through the gorge, and obviously flows right down here into the Yauk. So as we're exiting the park, we're about 4 miles away from West Newton itself. Mind your left. This area can be very busy because the West Newton to Cedar Creek section is only about 4 miles long, so a lot of people use this as a walking path. But between miles 111 that we just passed and 112 or so, there are a couple of interesting features along the trail here that we're going to stop and look at. So we're going to stop for a minute to see another little mini geology lesson. These cubby hole looking formations are sometimes called mailbox formations, although the technical name is Leesgang structure, named after the German chemist who first observed them. To geologists, the honeycomb structure is made up primarily of iron concentrations in the walls of the honeycomb that are left behind, as they were more resistant to water and air erosion than the surrounding sandstone. However, just like the tufa formation that we saw earlier, here's another one of those formations where you can look, but please don't touch. After passing mile 112, here's another interesting, quirky, I guess, feature of the Great Allegheny Passage segment here. This is the Yauk Nest Monster. Don't know if it's an official creature or entity, but obviously somebody did a good job here. I think there was one time, I think last year, that right next to the chair there was a cooler that had a UPS sticker on it. So I said at one point that, oh geez, he must work for UPS, but obviously that cooler is no longer there. But the Yauk Nest Monster still lurks the Allegheny River here close to West Newton. Shortly before we get to mile 113, we're going to see the remains of the old Banning number 4 mine. On the left are the remains of buildings, and if you look at this whole area on Google Earth, you can see that it was a very large facility above ground. Apparently, according to the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, this is a Superfund site and has a lot of hazardous waste over there. So I don't really think we want to go exploring. On the right side is an active water treatment facility for the mine. I read online that the company that manages this site keeps the facility going in an effort to slowly detoxify the groundwater seeping from the mine. One interesting thing that I'm going to show you here, these posted no trespassing signs, but they're purple and they're cut out. I've never seen anything like that before. I just thought I'd show you guys because that's just unique. They're coming to the last mile and a half or so. Now we're coming into the little area known as Budtown. You can see the Budtown Weather Rock here, and what I'd like to call a kind of quirky little house with a nice sign here giving us some brief history. This area used to be the location of the P&LE yard office where crews reported to work and got their assignments. From here on up to the paved section, the treadway is a good 16 feet wide. Primarily because there are so many people that use this little segment for a walking path. And the beginnings of the town of West Newton on the other side of the river. We've hit mile 114. And this last little segment up to the rest of the trailhead is actually paved. So here at mile 114.1, we've actually hit West Newton. The West Newton trailhead is technically two trailheads, and we've seen this before. There is one trailhead here and another trail access on that side, and we'll deal with that next time. I hope you enjoyed this look at the Great Allegheny Passage segment from Whitsett to West Newton. There's a lot of scenery in this segment, from forest views, beautiful river vistas, to natural geologic formations and multiple opportunities to rest along the way. It's also a ride through an industrial history that's so much a part of Western Pennsylvania. And here at West Newton is another quintessential trailhead town that we'll explore next time. But for now, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you next time for another episode of Secrets of the Trails. Have a great ride.